Hey freaks, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is JJ. I am an author and a metalhead, so here on my channel I like to talk about where storytelling and music meet. And today's concept album that I'll be covering has come as a request many times, but most recently on my metalhead community it was voted for me to cover next. So I invite all of you to join my metalhead community. Link is down in the description if you're interested. It's free, and you get access to bonus content, and then occasionally you get to vote for what concept album I cover next. So today we're going to be talking about Rush's 1976 album 2112. And so this concept actually follows only the A side of the record, while the B side is not a part of the concept. Now, of course, like nowadays we just buy things digitally and or like CD format. So what that means is the very first song of the album is the only part that is included in the concept, while the rest of the songs are just a medley of random songs that don't have to do with the concept. And you might be thinking like, well, how does this album count as a concept album if only one song has a story to it? Well, it counts when that one song is a 20-minute long epic prog masterpiece. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. Let's dive in. So while I was doing the research for this video, I realized that there's actually a comic book that goes with this album. So yeah, if you want to check it out, I will link it down in the description. It's a comic adaptation of not only the concept of the song 2112, but also like the rest of the songs are included in there as well. So I'll link that down in the description. Anyway, diving into the concept. So this story, of course, takes place in the year 2112. On a planet of the Solar Federation. And so this Solar Federation formed after this great galactic war that took place and ended in 2062. So the remaining planets, the ones that survived after this galactic war, found peace under the Federation, which is run by the priests of the Temple of Syrinx. So now this Federation is really just like a totalitarian sort of like evil empire that created a world which looks very much like how I imagine George Orwell's 1984 looks, but maybe a little bit more futuristic, maybe a little bit more Fahrenheit 451 or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep type of thing. At least that's how I imagine it. And the comic book makes it look a little bit more old school, but in my version it's very like, I don't know, science fiction-y, considering they just had a galactic war and all that. Anyway, this song is kind of divided up into 7 different parts. So we start with part 1, and that is Overture. So this is mostly an instrumental section. However, we have the one lyric that is, "And the meek shall inherit the earth." This is kind of like a flash forward foreshadowing type of thing that I don't want to spoil just yet, but will be explained by the end of the story. Whew, sorry, I'm talking fast. I'm trying to get this all in before she wakes up. Then we get to part 2 of this track, and that is the Temple of Syrinx. And so in this futuristic dystopian world that our protagonist lives in, which is, like I said, run by the Federation, which includes these priests of the Temple of Syrinx. And so these priests control basically all matter of entertainment, music, books, all kinds of art, just basically everything that you could consume. It's all controlled by the priests. And so of course this total domination comes in the name of equality and supposedly a better for all this communist ideals type of thing. But our protagonist starts out in this story pretty much just an average Joe living his day-to-day life, and he doesn't really know any other kind of life, so he's pretty content with where he's at right now. And he greatly venerates the priests, and he basically just goes about his simple controlled life. Now, side note here, Neil Peart, who wrote the lyrics and the concept for this portion of the album, was inspired by Ayn Rand's novels and her philosophy of objectivism. Fans of Ayn Rand tend to also be very anti-big government, which of course is the exact opposite of the world in which our protagonist lives. We now get to part 3, Discovery. And so under the Federation, the priests have pretty much destroyed, all these unauthorized instruments, so that, only the priests can control what kind of music is put out there and the type of music, of course. However, one day our protagonist, after a long day of working in the wheat fields, goes to take a break behind his favorite waterfall. And behind this waterfall is a cave. In this cave, he ends up discovering this artifact from the elder race of man that inhabited the earth before the galactic wars. And so what is this old relic? It is, of course, a guitar. And so our protagonist picks up up the guitar and begins playing it, and he instantly falls in love with the music that this strange instrument can make. And he loves the numerous ways that, you know, he can play it, and it evokes all these type of different emotions. And so the more he experiments with playing this guitar, the better he gets at it, and the more he is convinced that he needs to take this and share it with the rest of the world. So I imagine this time he, you know, spends a lot of time honing his skills and learning to get really good at the guitar. And by the time he's pretty proficient, he is convinced that he must bring this instrument before the priests so that they can share it with the rest of the world. And he begins to, you know, fantasize about, you know, how this new music will change the world, and, you know, all the praise that he will get for this discovery. We then get to part 4, presentation. So our protagonist takes the guitar to the temple, and before the priest, he plays a song. And then when he's done playing, instead of, you know, what he expected, which is, you know, all this excitement and praise, he is met instead with disdain. And so the priests say that, you know, they already know of this relic from the old days, but it has absolutely no place in their current society. So our protagonist, I'm sorry, I have to bounce, she's starting to wake up. But our protagonist is pretty shocked by this dismissal. And he, you know, tries to convince the priests to see reason. You know, their music is so beautiful, it's so different from all the music of the temple, and, you know, he just wants to share it with the world, but the priests won't have it. They explain that this toy is a part of what brought about the downfall of the elder race. So Father Brown, who I assume is like the, you know, head of these priests, he takes the guitar and he completely smashes and destroys it, and then castigates our protagonist and sends him on his way. So that then takes us to part 5, Oracle, the Dream. And so after this, our protagonist just kind of wanders around, really just upset and dejected. And he begins to see the world that he lives in for what it really is. Now that he has experienced true art, he finds the world that he's living in just, you know, empty and sterile. He eventually returns to the cave in which he found the guitar and settles in for a fitful night of sleep. While he sleeps, he has a dream, and in this dream he meets an oracle who takes him on a journey. And so the oracle shows him the rise of the elder race of man, and our protagonist gets to see the freedom of this elder race and how they innovate and grow and are able to create whatever they want, art and technology and everything at their disposal. And so he's really wowed by what he sees this race accomplish when they're given the freedom to do whatever they wish. And so the oracle then takes our protagonist to another planet, and this planet we find is where the elder race has migrated to. And so all of a sudden our protagonist now understands that the priests have been lying to him the whole time. The elder race did not destroy themselves. In fact, they just moved to another planet where they were free from the crushing grip of those who wish to control them. And moreover, he finds out that this elder race of man has plans to return to Earth and retake their home planet from the grips of the Federation. That takes us to part 6, Soliloquy. So our protagonist wakes up and he desperately wishes that what he dreamt was true. And he can't quite let go of what he saw in his dream. And so he starts fantasizing about living in the world of the elder race, you know, imagining the kind of freedom that he would get if he were to live during that time with those people. And suddenly his future seems so bleak. And as time goes on, he spends day after day alone in the cave, just kind of getting more and more depressed. He decides he can't continue to live on in this world after his eyes have been opened to the possibility of living without the oppression of the Federation. And so he really just feels like kind of, you know, another part in this machine that is, you know, being run by the priests. And so after sulking in his cave day after day, he finally decides to take his own life. But just as he's about to do it, we get to part 7, grand finale. And so our protagonist is just about to kill himself. However, right at that moment, ships appear in the sky and he realizes that his dream was not just a dream. So we hear the announcement, "Attention all planets of the Solar Federation, we have assumed control." So this blaring announcement declares that the elder race has arrived. So they bomb the priest temples and they begin to take back their home planet. So that is where this story ends. However, I will note that without the comic book, a fan theory is that our protagonist did actually kill himself and was not able to see the return of the elder race. Which, if I'm just interpreting the lyrics by themselves, I probably would have drawn that conclusion as well. But in the comic book, we do have a happier ending. So in the comic book, which is what I'm basing this story explanation off of, we do have a ending where our protagonist does not kill himself. He gets to be a part of, you know, this revolution with the elder race coming back. So yeah, interpret it whatever way that you so choose. So that is a wrap on the story behind Rush's 2112 album. I love this album, and I had a lot of fun covering the story and reading the comic book. So yeah, please let me know down in the comments what you thought of this story, what you thought of the comic book and this concept and my explanation. I always love to hear from you guys. I also love hearing alternate theories as well, so drop all of that down in the comments. And as always, I invite you all to join my Metalhead community. Link is in the description if you want to get bonus content and all that good stuff. And yes, thank you to all of you from my Metalhead community who requested this video. But yeah, I'm happy to be back and making more content for you guys. There may or may not be the top of a baby head in a lot of my upcoming videos. But yeah, thank you all so much for your support. If you want to further support what I do here on my channel, feel free to subscribe, like, share, do all that fun stuff. And I will see you freaks soon for another video. Thanks for watching. Until next time.